Welcome everybody to the second lecture of Module 3 of Unit 3, in which we will develop the topic of Judaism and health. So, what are the relationship between Judaism and health? How to approach the two? Let's start from this, that concern for health is a religious concern. For Jews, because a healthy body is the basis for the healthy mind. During the lecture 1 I mentioned Sabbath, so it's important to bear it in mind that it's a time for rest, reflection, and to maintain good physical and mental health. Risks to health can be accepted for Jews if they are taken by the majority of people. Attitudes to risk are therefore determined by the behaviors of the general public. Smoking, according to the majority opinion of experts in Jewish law, was permitted, although it was repeatedly discouraged. As a result of a better understanding of the harmfulness of this habit, and as a result the decrease in the number of smokers and the lack of social approval for smoking in public spaces, recent halachic opinions have tended towards a ban on smoking. Of course, there is also an important sense of washing your hands after waking up at night, before meals, after going to the toilet, after having your nails cut. So, of course, this is like according to religious regulations. When it comes to illness, one has to mention that there are associations in Jewish communities for the sick and dying. There is also the obligation to take an interest in the sick and suffering person. A sick person is visited as a sign of love, referring to God. One should always bring something to a sick person in need. Most often, these are immaterial things like a smile, a comforting word, or a prayer. A doctor is being treated as a highest authority, having absolute power. A doctor is considered an instrument of God, his partner. So, how about childbirth and life-threatening situations during the Sabbath? So, as for the childbirth, as soon as the woman feels signs of labor pains, even if she is not sure, a midwife is called to her or she is taken to hospital. The woman in labor is treated as a life-threatening patient, and the Sabbath is violated for her in everything she needs. However, if something can be done in an unusual way or with the help of non-Jew, then it should be done. A woman is considered to in labor when she is on the birthing table, or when she has a blood loss, or when she no longer has the strength to walk on her own. As for the life-threatening situations, for a patient with a life-threatening condition, one should discreet the Sabbath in order to save the person's life, even if afterwards such behavior turns out to be unnecessary. The person providing help will be rewarded. It's also important to mention selected Jewish holidays which are relevant for understanding, the Jew patient in healthcare system. So we have Passover, which is a major Jewish holiday that celebrates the exodus of the Israeli from slavery in Egypt. We have also Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, which occurs 163 years after the first day of Passover. So it's like a moving one. And the Bar Mitzvah and the Bat Mitzvah, which is coming of age, rituals in Judaism, which are for the 13 years old boys and 12 years old girls. On this day, in the presence of all family members and friends and his teacher, a boy who has reached the age of 13 reads a passage from the Torah in the synagogue. After the reading, he gives a commentary on it, which he has prepared himself. In this way, a boy becomes a full-fledged citizen of the community. He obeys all laws and is responsible for his actions. As for girls, during the ritual, girls are welcomed into the Jewish community. The girls become adults. On this occasion, pine trees are planted. Their branches are used to make the roads for the wedding canopy. under which these girls will be married. So coming back to health behavior in Judaism, so what's the kosher principle also mentioned before? The kosher principle stands for prohibition of eating meat from solipeds, rabbits, and meat from non-ruminant, such as pigs, equating creatures that lack scales and fins, such as eels, sharks, mollusks and crustaceans, such as octopus, shrimps and crabs, and all kinds of insects and worms, moths, also like birds, as well as eggs and milk from these animals. Compliance with the rules on the slaughter of animals. Animals must be killed by ritualistic method by a suitable qualified person. Jews attach great importance to food and the form of it and form of consumption. The food they eat is referred to as kosher. The concept of kosher, of course, derives from the Torah, from the Torah. So let's overview selected rules concerning health behaviors in Judaism. There are some specific rules that are important to keep in mind for healthcare practitioners, such as the prohibition of eating meat together with milks. Orthodox Jews therefore have two sets of pots, dishes, cutlery and dishwashers. An appropriate time must pass between eating a meat dish and a milk dish, which is 6 hours. The prohibition to sow two kinds of grain in the field and to wear clothes made of different fibers. The ban of eating food that has been prepared during the Sabbath and other holidays. Concerning alcohol, it is not forbidden, but should not be abused. As for the medical care, it's also important to stress that a follower of Judaism has an obligation to submit to all medical recommendations concerning preventive, diagnostic, therapeutic, rehabilitation, and nursing measures. Specifics of the patient's stay on Sabbath, this was already mentioned. And on Sabbath and Yom Kippur, no surgical procedures or examinations are performed. A patient will not sign consent form on the Sabbath also, except of course life-threatening situations. As for Judaism believers, they also keep their heads covering in public spaces, so also in. So, what is the provision of nursing care for an adult Jewish patient? Let's start from this, that the human life is a supreme value. And the patient takes responsibility of his or her own health and for his or health active cooperation with the doctor. The family is the main support for the patient. It is the family that takes care of the patient. Same-sex nursing care is welcomed. In case of serious illnesses, religious precepts no longer apply. It's important to gain knowledge of the patient's habit and religious precepts concerning the food she or he eats. It's also important to allow the patient to eat food prepared by the family and also to provide a kosher diet if the family is unable to provide kosher food on their own. It's also important to allow the patient to light candles if the day of stay falls on a Sabbath. As for the nursing care of the child in Jewish culture, it is important to mention that the care of a child in Jewish culture is no different from the practice of Christian or atheist children. In relation to the child, all procedures involving the saving of life and the return to health are permitted. All vaccinations are administered in accordance with the current vaccination schedule. As it was mentioned before, Jews celebrate the birth of a boy and a girl differently. After the birth of a boy, Shalom Zahar or Halloween is celebrated on the first Friday evening after the birth. Guests are invited after the Friday night meal. Traditionally, relatives, friends and neighbors gather at the home of the parents of a newborn baby. As for the Judaism and elder people, so Jewish law dedicates that people over 70 years old of age, as well as their parent, must be worshipped. It is forbidden to disobey them address them by name, embarrass them, or lose one's temper in their presence. Children have a duty to feed and dress their parents, to get up from their seat when they enter and express themselves respectfully to them. A person on his/her deathbed should confess his/her sins. Teasing such a person, annoying him/her is considered equal to a murder. Once death is pronounced, one must immediately prepare for burial. Uh, with a white shred is prepared, the body of the deceased is thoroughly washed and anointed with spices. And so the final point for the Judaism and the lecture 2 is completed. The death and dying. So let's start from funeral. On returning home from the funeral, a meal is served, which is prepared by friends, so that the mourners do not toil. A very important role is also played by the community, comforting the mourners. There are specific mourning practices, and it's also important to keep in mind that Jewish cemeteries do not place flowers, but stones. Followers of Judaism believe in life after death. Thank you very much for listening lecture number 2 of unit 3 and lecture number 3 of this unit. I will cover the topic of Islam. Thank you very much for listening.